My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into it today. I want to start with the topic of Web3 retail loyalty. This is one of the killer apps that I believe is going to make, really, I think, Web3 become mainstream. And as you guys know, we've done a lot of videos on Starbucks because we thought Starbucks might be able to crack through, kind of that holy grail of understanding the digital, physical nature of where Web3 is going. We did one back here about 13 days ago. It was in reference to the Starbucks rug pull, in essence, on the NFT and the dropping of the Odyssey program. And then if you look all the way back into our analysis of this a year ago, we did not necessarily like the way that they were going about it. Now, granted, I don't want to say I told you so kind of thing, but that was one of the things that we saw. Go back and check that video out as well. I want to cut to a clip that will give you guys kind of a catch up. And the reason this is important is because this really is, I think, one of the key elements that will be the future of how these businesses integrate NFTs, Web3. Take a look.
Technology. You've got a bit of the technologist in you, and that's going to be very important.
We're going to double the number of the Starbucks Rewards members over the course of the next 5 years.
But can you do that?
We've always been at the leading edge in terms of technology.
The stock price of Starbucks is collapsing.
This past quarter, Starbucks sales fell off of a cliff.
Total revenue at Starbucks was negative. There's no pickup here.
I just think it's dead money. I would stay away from it.
You can see that Dunkin' grew quite a bit faster, and Dutch Brothers, which is a fast expanding chain, grew far more quickly.
How can you explain your 10% comp versus the King, which had low single digit?
We were also super focused on our rewards program.
Howard Schultz said, quote, "The company's fix needs to begin at home."
The stores require a maniacal focus on the customer experience. I actually do feel like the customer experience,
it's pretty lame now.
It's a little
lame.
And I think that's why Starbucks is now introducing boba.
Okay, what is boba?
So it's the little bubbles.
There are fundamental issues that the company needs to address first before they're introducing, say, a boba tea or pearl.
We should talk about what their CEO just said on CNBC yesterday.
We have not been able to communicate to them the value that we provide. But there's an action plan we have in place in order to do that. For example, a beverage and a drink at a certain price.
I think there's a lot of excuses. They blame weather. It seemed like there was a lot of panic.
I'm sorry, but C-suite execs just need to get with the modern times.
Would you bring Howard back?
No. Absolutely not.
Let's keep it real. Howard, he hired Laxman.
You need to have a leader who is for the future, not bringing the past. If it's me, I'm looking at somebody who's at Chipotle.
Starbucks is just the beginning of this. We're going to see, I think, a lot of brand revolutions starting to happen, some of which have already started. Understanding this new demographic, that's both Gen A and Gen Z. One of the things that we noticed when we started analyzing this was a handful of projects out there that were doing just that. One of them was a project called Raposa Coffee. This is kind of that irreverent element that I'm talking about. And what I mean by this is when you think about drawing in a connection to the next generation consumer, you're going to have to do it with some pretty advanced technology. And I think one of the things that will move into is going to be the NFT, Web3 space, what we'll see in payments, all of that. So I want to bring in our guest today. And this is a good one because this is Andrew Sokolow, who is one of the founders over at Raposa Coffee. Great to see you, Andrew.
Nice to see you, Paul. How are you?
Good. So you guys caught our attention. We saw a little bit what you were doing. I started diving a little bit more into Raposa, and then I realized you weren't a coffee company. You were a Web3 branding company that created a coffee company. So first of all, tell us the story, how you guys got started. What was the journey into Raposa?
Absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, the journey started from the grounds up, no pun intended. It's in our tagline. We were just a bunch of guys who were interested in Web3, interested in specifically the Solana blockchain since the early days. Started collecting NFTs, just very interested from a creative standpoint and a tech standpoint of what was possible. And we saw early on that a lot of these projects that we're launching, as I'm sure everybody has seen in the news, a lot of scams, a lot of rug pulls, a lot of funds raised with no substance behind it. So we kind of got tired of that and realized that a lot of projects lacked that Web 2 or in-person expertise or any sort of industry expertise. So we realized that there was a really good opportunity for us to actually already be integrated into the ecosystem. Let's take what we're good at in real life. And I come from a creative agency, branding and digital marketing background in New York City. My partner has been in the coffee industry for 14 years. So we thought to ourselves, like, what can we do with this technology and the ability to sell NFTs on a global level and use those funds for something good and make it tangible and bring it to the real world. So we did that. We built out our 2-story roastery, and we have 7 flavors of nitro cold brew. We focus on specialty coffee beans and the whole 9 yards, and how NFTs as a loyalty technology, how it can be integrated into our sales and into our community.
Well, you guys are, you're walking the walk of what, we talk about on this channel for many years, and that is the future of where retail and really where brands are going to be going. Obviously, we saw Nike come in with Artifact, pretty much showcasing the formula here that I think many brands are trying to replicate now. The food service industry, though, when you look at restaurants, beverage, et cetera, this is one of the biggest industries out there. You're talking about $4 trillion a year in revenue just globally. And you take a look at the number of lives, people that are touched by this industry every single day. The opportunity is pretty big here in terms of being able to kind of really bring in this next generation of retail consumers. Talk to me about what you saw as an opportunity to kind of grow Raposa.
I think the big thing is that it allows you from a very early start to grow this kind of grassroots of brand loyalists who are emotionally connected and emotionally invested in what it is that you're doing, and having this like kind of pull back the curtain moment from day one to show like this is how we're building. We've been showing like how the roastery renovations started and just every kind of step of the way to grow that brand loyalty that I think a lot of these Web2, like massive Web2 companies are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to reach. We've done at zero cost and in a way that we could actually reward the people who have believed in us from day one with discounts, free products, and just giving them a voice in the direction that we're going. I think that's such a big, technology aside, I think that's something that people have been yearning for just for years now. And I think this tech allows us to connect at that level that's needed. And at a global level, I think that's a big thing.
When you look at Starbucks, I mean, you've had a chance to, kind of tongue in cheek this, but at the same time, this is the biggest coffee brand on the planet. They clearly have lost their way. But you look at a brand like that, and I often say, well, this is the natural evolution for a brand like Starbucks or many of the other, Titan, IP-rich brands like them. Why do you think they were not able to kind of just say, this is the new frontier, this is the new vision, and just go with it instead of kind of, going out with a whimper?
The main thing is that there's a big disconnect. And I think I know you like to mention, and of course, me being in the space, there's like this degen community, right?
Yeah.
And they're very protective in these early days of the amount of time and effort that they've spent into cultivating this ecosystem, this decentralized ecosystem. When they see these big brands, they come and try and enter in a, a disconnected way. It's a big turnoff. So I think entering the ecosystem in the right way is very important. Now, I think Starbucks did that. I think that they just didn't really connect on the reward side of things in my perspective. They might have lost touch with who they were, who their users were. And I think it just goes to show that a brand like us, not to toot our own horn, but knowing who your community is from the very beginning, is just such a big plus.
Well, yeah, for sure. And, this is the thing when you look at like your NFT, the Kups collection. I was looking on your website here. And one thing, and this is small, but it's huge. And that is, you won't go to a typical brand and see a button to join a Discord, first of all. It just doesn't exist. And the reason is because this is a very native somewhat loose cannon category of communication, and that's one of the worst things that big brands don't like, and that is, they can barely get over their own self in terms of social media in most cases, which is younger millennials and soon to be Gen A, and then we're going to see an evolution that's growing under the age of 12, quickly coming into the consumer side of things in terms of spending. Let's talk about utility, NFT utility. What have you guys created with Raposa that makes it different? Talk to me about that.
What I will say is that from the very beginning, our intention with the NFT aspect was to expand on what's possible through loyalty, using them as an amazing way to track loyalty and to have ownership of that loyalty. So you're able to kind of stake your cups right now. You earn what we call beans, basically loyalty points, and those points can be spent on discounts, on ordering products, on real world coffee products. We work with different partnerships to provide other sorts of value to our holders. But I think the big thing is being able to track that and have ownership over that aspect of your loyalty, right? And have that connection to the company.
If you just look at, just your collection, I was looking at the Magic Eden site here. I mean, you've already got a lot of activity out there, almost 1,500 holders. The fact that it's got a fairly decent, floor price on something that is really brand oriented here. I mean, that's the beauty of it. The fact that you guys have done this on Solana, I think, is not by happenstance, very strategic. So kudos to you guys. You understand what's up. But one of the things that I'm watching, and I want to get your opinion on that, is this whole airdrop phenomenon between physical and digital. So Saga and the Solana phone comes out, they start dropping bunk, kind of revive that phone, and before you know it, that phone's selling like crazy, and it's actually has more airdrops in it that's worth more than the phone itself. So do you see that happening with brands where they start to understand, wait a minute, if I could partner with a game console company, a phone company, any kind of device, or even a wallet, in some cases, and just start airdropping in value? What do you think in terms of strategy there?
I think it's again a delicate rope to tiptoe across, but I think it is such a good opportunity. And you see here we have this.
That's Marquez that's Marquez Brownlee.
Yeah, exactly, Marquez Brownlee. And
I love it. What was that? The worst phone? That was the worst phone ever. And then but it's the most valuable phone out there. Selling.
Yeah. And having that ability, we have our artist in house, having the ability to make like quick illustrations and play into the meme culture like this. That was actually something we did airdrop to all of the Saga holders ourselves as our own marketing ploy. And that granted you kind of this chance to win free coffee from us for a year. So we gave away, we had that point of touch to, 15,000 Saga Genesis token holders. We got about maybe 40 to 50% of them to flow into our Discord, and we had the raffle, the giveaway there live. So that onboarding metric was something, again, very low cost, something pretty easy for us being in the space to do. But again, a good example of other brands being able to do that in a good way. I think it's a great way to get some additional brand exposure to a new demographic that, a Web2 company might not be in.
Well, and I think that was the thing back with Starbucks when I was listening to Kramer grill their CEO, and I'm not a Kramer fan, but he was really going at him. And he went out and he drew one specific statement to me that I thought, okay, that's the end of that CEO. And that was that they were unable to communicate to their own customer. A multi-billion-dollar brand didn't understand how to communicate to your customer and be able to lift that loyalty mechanism. And really, that's the problem that I think we're seeing with a lot of brands right now that are breaking versus some of the brands that are not. I want to talk about a little bit in terms of collabs. You guys did this one with, is that Boryoku?
Boryoku Dragons.
Boryoku? Yeah. Okay, so this was a nice little collab here. You've got integration with the, obviously the NFT holders applying into this in terms of the discount. First of all, how do you go about selecting the the collaboration partners, but also just storyboarding this thing, getting it into a format to like what we're seeing on screen right now, which is where you guys have kind of created a really cool almost collectible bag there, for the beans. What is the process for you to go through that and develop something?
It's a fun process, but it's all about brand sharing brand equity. I think knowing that we're in this space, in this small space still, right? Very early. We always like to say we just like to, I think, look for other projects with like-minded values that we know have been around for a while. Some of the bigger ones that we've done, even outside of the NFT or these like limited edition drops, is we've done a lot of pop-up activations with the brands like Kraken. We've done collabs with Helium Mobile. Getting into these, even for us from a small company perspective, getting with some of these bigger brands has helped us grow our reach tremendously. And I think it's a space where, unlike many others, a lot of companies are very helpful towards one another. And I think that's such a big aspect of why we like to be in the space, and why I personally am, believe in it so much. I think the person-to-person connections that we've seen come out of the space from, what has started as a very digital space, very anonymous in the beginning. I think this last year we've seen these collabs and partnerships blossom because a lot more in-person events, a lot more conferences, and we like to be kind of at the forefront of that with our coffee pop-ups as well. So
yeah, for sure. I was looking at your Twitter post here with the den. So kind of showcasing that right there. You can kind of see a little bit of that. Talk to me about this particular pop-up. What is in here? I'm looking at different things. I see the Nitro product. Well, what's on that wall right there? What is that?
So on the left wall, we
had...
So this was a pop-up store we rented. It was a magazine shelf that we actually printed out, I can't remember, about 80 different people's PFPs. So we turned it into our own kind of art wall to showcase some of our community, to give people who couldn't actually make it to New York. This was in Soho on Mercer Street. But the den was really special. It was in partnership with Solana Pay. So we had crypto payments integrated at checkout. We were taking fiat and credit card payments as well, but we basically just took over this massive what's normally a fashion store, turned it into a coffee shop collab experience. We had a podcast studio downstairs.
Oh, nice.
Another way to get content, right? Live content. We had our branding in the back, so everybody who came in was posting about that. And then again, these PFP prints on the coffee is such a big hit with our customers and our attendees. Just a really easy way to get onto the timeline.
So you talked about integrating Solana Pay. How smooth was that for you guys to do it there at the pop-up?
We've been working pretty closely with Solana Foundation and our partners over at Venta, who are the guys who kind of built the POS system that we've been using. And a little bit more of the tech arm. So we've been really at the forefront of iterating on what is possible and making these changes. That week was a week that was not so great for Solana. I think it was the week where the chain was being overrun with some sort of attack. But typically, I will say that it is very smooth. I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to make it a bit more frictionless. Because right now it's needing to have USDC in a Solana-based mobile wallet. If you have that, it's very quick, very easy. But getting people from step A to that step B is still a little hard. So I think there's a ton that could be done.
Yeah, it's a gigantic step until we crack that. And of course, Solana Pay, kudos to them. I think they're probably the closest out there, but there are a handful of others. Obviously, what we'll see in Europe now with stablecoin regulations coming into play, we could see a lot more speed to market in terms of true crypto payments. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to talk about depins because I know you guys have done a little bit of collaboration. You mentioned Helium, I think it was. Yeah. So, and then I saw your hotspot post here. So when you look at decentralized physical infrastructure networks, that was, for those of you watching, depins, where do you see in terms of an opportunity there?
I think Helium Mobile specifically is doing a fantastic job, giving that sense of loyalty or kind of that compensation, if you will, whether they call it that or not. But, giving some sort of token for providing your part in adding to this, decentralized network, I think is already kind of step one in the right direction. I personally have Helium Mobile on my Saga, obviously biased that we work with them, but I think that they're a really good case study to see how things could be done in that space. And their decision to come over to Solana, I think maybe a year ago or more.
Yeah, that was
now.
a huge, good move for them, I think, in terms
Massive
of the
move.
opportunity. Yeah. Well, you think coffee shops at some point, whether Helium Mobile starts dropping in hotspots, we start to see those mesh network concepts, which is really kind of what they're built on. So I think that's a good partnership there. You look at third-party delivery, Uber Eats is pretty much the killer app. One that we work with, which is called Devour. Basically, it's an order app. Almost think about a restaurant being able to generate an engagement or a loyalty integration that might work with gaming, or at least the ability to order all of that. The opportunity there in terms of where this might go for something displacing an Uber Eats, what do you think blockchain could do in that area? What do you think the future holds there?
I think for delivery apps, it's the next one to do it. I personally haven't looked too much into it, but I know that for us, from us to people's door, on-demand delivery of groceries and that sort of stuff is something that I think is such a big opportunity. And we'd like to at least have our products be a part of that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. You mentioned HiMapper, more of a geolocation. They're more of the mapping ecosystem. The teleporter, or teleport, I should say, is the company that's trying to recreate the driver community, which would be for delivery, and then the tie-in to what Devour is trying to do. Those are all good steps, but they're still super early in all phases. Even though I think we'll see some breakthroughs on case studies that are used, much like what you guys have done with Raposa out there in the space, for sure. Last point getting into, and that is gaming collaborations. We've covered another company that has done some things with Solana on our show, Boba Guys, which is, we've talked about them before, and they've integrated now with gaming concepts. So you think gaming, it's a natural, I think, especially for upstart brands like this, because the demographic is just right on. What do you think about that in terms of gaming collaborations with something like Raposa?
I think it's 100% on our roadmap. I think, again, like especially caffeinated beverages, right? We like to think of ourselves as the healthy, like Monster or Red Bull alternative.
There you go.
So the opportunities there. For sure. And I think, again, it's taking that partnership to the next level with, co-branded IP and these illustrations, and having, like, let's say our Kups character in the game. Maybe that gives the whoever has that character a discount to our store, and vice versa. And I think that there's so much opportunity there. But again, I think you need to have that basis of IP with the NFTs that we have, our character that can be transported, to any game, any metaverse. So
yeah, for sure. I just feel it, man. It's so close. We are so close. After
I agree.
The last cycle, watching this happen, seeing the NFT market collapse, brands not necessarily connecting outside of Nike, really, and then a few high-end fashion brands that were starting to toy with it. But I think now with real-world assets coming into the place, obviously brands kind of understanding the convergence of digital and physical, and IP being its own new life, which is what you guys have been able to do. Lots of opportunity. So we're going to be watching Raposa very closely. And thanks so much for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was fantastic. Appreciate it.
You bet. All right, so you guys are tuned in maybe on the podcast side of things. Make sure and jump over here to the YouTube channel, because this is where you're going to catch all of this kind of innovative talk when we get in and dive into really what's happening in blockchain, really what's happening with Web3. If you're not a subscriber to TechPath and PBN, what are you doing? Just hit subscribe right now. That little button is going to give you notifications when we do live streams, all sorts of cool stuff. Of course, we always leave links down to our Diamond Circle, which is our own private group. You guys can reach me out there on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.